We are starting soon.
Nope.
Oh, it's me. Hello.
Wrong order of buttons.
Welcome back to another episode of the Album Book Club. This week we checked out the Aquanauts vs. the Floating Eye of Death and Other Amazing Adventures Volume 1. A little background on the band. They formed back in the 90s, back in 94. So, you know, that Dookie era, Green Day was their driving force, and they were a ska and punk band originally. In the mid-2000s, they became a new wave band to kind of keep going with the times. Throughout the years, they've had this wild stage act that's like this comedy superhero team, but they have never really particularly focused on that too much musically. It's always just been the act and then their musicians on the side. So it's just this weird kind of American version of the Wiggles that's in its own niche little sector.
Yeah, neat fact. I only knew about them because Travis Barker was their drummer for a while. This is the band Travis Barker was in before Blink-182. Yeah, drum nerd here.
All right. Let's just go right into our top three. I have Amino Man, Lotto Fever, and Hello Goodbye.
Am I up? Oh, sorry. I have Chemical Bomb, The Ballad of Mr. Bonkers, and The Thing on the Bass Amp.
I had Amino Man, Lotto Fever, and Antimatter.
Stealing my list, man. And then for my bottom track, I have The Man with Gluey Hands.
I have Tiny Pants.
Believe it or not, I also have Tiny Pants.
And that's so fair. I did write I Guess next to my bottom track. I really did not dislike a single track on this album and had a hard time kind of picking a bottom track.
I did until it got to Tiny Pants, and then the decision was pretty obvious.
Yeah, that one. It makes sense. I'm not disagreeing.
You were actively texting me about the album while I was listening to it, and I was like, I have a note that's like, Logan, you need to defend this because of how much you were praising this album while I was listening to it.
That's fair. All right. Takes us. We'll just go hop right into track one, Sequence Erase. I gave this a 7.5.
I gave this one a 7.
I also gave this one a 7.
Yeah, it's just got a weird, goofy intro. It's a couple guys. It's just got a whole lot of drive to the rest of the actual song. It's not a very standard progression that you would hear in any kind of normal, like, I would say ska song, I guess. It felt just a little something that was trying to stand out, and everything was just going hard the whole time.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's definitely ska or ska adjacent. Everything's lighthearted and fun. I liked how upbeat it was. The only thing I wrote I wasn't sure about was there was a vocal filter at the very beginning, but they turned it off, so I was fine.
Yeah, love the marimba, the horns. It's like a cartoon intro, and I didn't realize until the end of it that it was an intro. I thought it was going to keep going for like another minute or so. So it's still got the intro note is still here, but it was still a really fun song. I think the first like 8 songs have fun somewhere on the note, but
yeah. There were some cool like trumpet break sections in this, which just needed. I felt that everything in this song didn't feel overwhelming. which is very weird because there's a lot of things going on in this song. But it's just always done right. It's a bunch of guys that were up there having fun. And I've talked about it pretty recently about disliking gimmicks and stuff like that. But this is the way to do a gimmick right, which is be a really good musician and then just go have fun. And yeah, I cannot praise it enough, I suppose. Anybody have anything else for this track?
No, sorry, I just read the lore of the band. If you want me to read all of it, it's actually really funny. So all of the original members of the band lived on a distant and idyllic island known as Aquabania, which is populated by human-like bat creatures. And the island was attacked by a villainous space monster M, and they all fled to the ocean in a hollowed-out log, washed ashore in California, and were taken in by Professor Monty Corndog, who used chemicals to revive them and give them superpowers. So they donned costumes including radioactive rash guards, power belts, and anti-negativity helmets, and decided to channel their powers through music in order to take over the world by attracting legions of fans. Neat.
That's what's up.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting. It explains the whole like superhero thing and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they all wear matching costumes and
Yeah, so Aquabats, if you're hiring, I know 3 guys. Would love to do it. I think we'll go ahead and hop right into track 2, Giant Robot Birdhead. I gave this a 9 out of 10.
I gave this one a 7.
Give it a 7.5.
Yeah, this was just fun. Everything about this was fun and goofy. It reminded me of being a kid again. I mean, this isn't something I particularly grew up with. I kind of hit this way later in life. A high school teacher had introduced me to the Aquabats, so I knew about this and had listened to this album before going in, but just never really took a deep listen to it. And oh my gosh, you don't have to. Everything is very surface level with them. They're pretty upfront. It's just so much fun.
I kind of wish I had listened during that part of my childhood. I think I wasted all of it listening to like Skynyrd and AC/DC. But anyway, this song, it slowed down a little bit, but it still was very catchy. I still loved that it sounded. I wrote that it sounded very indie still. It doesn't sound too polished, but it sounds polished enough. I'm not angry. Everything just fits with the kind of persona and the whole thing it works. So that's all I got.
Yeah. Logan said it best. The song is just fun. I love the like punk ska elements that are still here from the intro. I was worried that they might go away, and then I figured out real quick that they're not going anywhere except for like twice. But my only issue with it is it got a little bit repetitive at a couple of points, but other than that, it's a good time.
I think I looked at this album through a very weird lens of knowing that this is not exactly for me, but 10 years ago it was. So I kind of had to listen from like 13-year-old me's perspective this week and just think about kind of what it would be like for a kid to listen to this, because obviously we're not supposed to listen to a song about a giant robot bird head and take it seriously.
Who's going to stop us?
But it is very fun. And even as an adult, it's very kind of nostalgic to be able to think back and think of how I would have thought of it as a kid. They kind of just got both angles right there, I guess, for nostalgia. It's a weird feeling. Also, this album is that old. It's from 99, so they weren't trying.
You weren't even alive then.
No. This is pre-me. But their TV show is post-me, which makes no sense, and we can talk about that. They have pitched this TV show at least 6 or 7 separate times, and it was only ever picked up twice. Originally, it got pitched back in 97. They did a pilot, and you can find, I believe, all the pilots out there on the internet. I've seen a good chunk of them. They did it back in 97, I believe, in 2003, somewhere in the late 2000s, so like 2007 to 09. Then it got picked up on the Hub in 2012, where it ran until about 2014, stopped, and then from 2019 to 2025, it ran somewhere. I think it said YouTube, but I did not believe that because I never saw that on like a YouTube Red, and YouTube Premium doesn't have TV shows anymore.
The only reason I know they were back active again is because PDP had a signature Aquabats drum set out, which is a really random thing. But yeah, there was a signature Aquabats drum set for a hot minute very recently.
So apparently they just have never stopped going. From 94 to now, they have been active. I think there's only 2 of the original guys left, which is going to happen after that long. But holy crap, to just keep going. Because I guarantee you, making music, while fun, is probably not their like main want. They want to put on the show. And that's something that's kind of, I don't know, unheard of anymore. I think everyone just wants to make money. But I genuinely think these guys want to put on a show.
I was going to say, I think like bands where you're playing in characters and getting into character is such a great way to do that too, because it's really easy to write someone else into the lore or do something else differently. And as long as you're not Kiss and let Gene Simmons destroy everything, it can run forever. I mean, you know, this IP could run for a very long time. I just think that's something really cool. They started this and kind of built it into something that can go as long as they really want it to. I mean, you know, the Wiggles are kind of the same way. You know, we've talked about them before. Here Come the Mummies. We've talked about that band a little bit. You know, it's similar things. I don't know how that I crossed those 2 words, but it's kind of a similar thing where once you're doing that, it's easy to kind of get in and change things here and there, and it's not this big ordeal where, you know, the guitar player left and now we need to figure out something else, and now the guitar player's back, and normal rock band BS. It can be fun and lighthearted, which I think is the whole thing with this album. I think that's why it keeps winning.
Mm-hmm. All right. We'll go ahead and hop right into track 3, Antimatter. I give it an 8.5.
I give this one a 7.
Gave this one an 8.5.
Yeah. Energy, again, top notch. The chorus was a lot of fun. Everything was playing exactly what it needed to, even when it got weird. Like, the synths got kind of outrageously weird, but it fit. It didn't seem like it was wrong. My biggest point of contention was they start singing the actual melody as, like, ba-da-da-bop-bop, and it just made me so mad because it went on for at least 20 seconds. I was like, okay, I get it once as, like, a turnaround or something like that, and it is, like, ska adjacent at the least, if not ska. So it makes sense with the genre. It felt wrong with everything else going on.
Yeah, you nailed it. I thought this song overall was more polished, and I liked the humor in it a little better. It was a little, I guess, a little higher level. I just did not like the ba-da-ba section. And there's actually scores marked out and points going down on my notes from that section happening. So
I was not bothered enough by it to write it down. But, see, I did one of them. I really like the bass on this song. And I'm pretty sure there's at least 3 or 4 like TV shows that pretty much sampled this directly.
I would not be surprised.
I don't know them off the top of my head, but I feel like I've heard some of the sounds in this before, and I definitely haven't heard this album before today. So
the thing too is I wouldn't be surprised if these guys ended up as session guys for a lot of stuff like that, because a lot of the sounds on this reminded me of like the Electric Company. And I'm like, these are very specific synth sound. Like someone either wanted this sound from this album, or these guys were just playing for that show.
The synth sounds are very specific and iconic. We get orchestra hits later. There's mellotrons later. Mm-hmm. They're very, very iconic synth sounds, and it's kind of bringing you back into it. And I mean, even the clean guitars sound like classic surf rock. Everything is just something that's very. I don't know. It's not boring, but
very defined.
Right. It's stuff that we all recognize and all see, and it's all these iconic sounds coming together. It's not like something that's normally made for kids. It's not like we're listening to Kids Bop or something and absolutely hating our lives. That this album is put together really, really well out of really good pieces. I mean, the pieces all fit together really well too.
This is seemingly definitely a band that thought about the fact of parents have to bring kids to shows, so let's make it good for both. It's got that Shrek thing going on where everybody gets a laugh, everybody gets to be excited and have a good time.
This is pre-Shrek.
This is pre-Shrek. That's the other thing too. We talk about, or you talked about how there's these iconic sounds. I mean, when this was getting written, they probably, still were iconic, right? And were the industry standard, but not as, because we've got an extra 26 years to sit on it.
Yeah, I don't know that this is like a band people don't know. I think it's one of the ones that's just like right under the top layer. I don't think they ever got their due.
I bet this is like your favorite punk player's favorite, like, guilty pleasure band or something weird.
Yeah, and I bet they put on a killer live show. That's what I was looking at tour dates while I was listening to this earlier, trying to see.
The teacher who introduced me said every time they come to town, him and his kids go. They just have a blast.
Yeah, I bet it's a great show.
All right. Anybody have anything else for Antimatter? Go ahead and hop on to track 4, Lotto Fever. I gave this one a 10.
7.5.
9.
Yeah, look, man, it was so much fun. They were talking about like a magic fish and stuff. It was just goofy. This was the point where I realized everything this album stood for was everything I was here for this week. It was just here to have nonsensical, just fun, while being good, but not super focused on the music being great. Because the music is all good. It's just not, the most technically proficient or required to be the most masterful, like bunch of different hard techniques and stuff. It's just goofy fun, hard hitting music. This one was the Let's Go Gambling version of that from a couple weeks ago, or last week, whichever week. I don't remember. Carson said Let's Go Gambling. Oh, it was Kylie Minogue. You were gone.
Okay,
that's why you don't
I
know
don't remember that one.
Yeah. I didn't love the synth section. I think that's why my scores were a little lower than you guys. It was just like, and it's not that I'm sure it's hilarious and fun, but like, it just like hit me out of nowhere. Do your notes say that I wouldn't like it?
No, the notes just say the synths are on point.
My second note is the synth is great.
No, it's not that I didn't like the synths overall. It's just there's a random section of like screaming synth lead lines that like comes out of nowhere, and it kind of took me off guard.
I know what you're talking about because I do have synths are fine written at that part, but then later they just completely 180. And I was like, these are perfect now.
I did like the weird dueling stereo guitar outro. That was cool.
Yeah, I think it loses the plot of this note about halfway through, but this is like beat for beat a Cake song for the first half of the song. And I was 100% here for it. And then the synths kick in and it moves away from that, but it stayed for about as long as it needed to.
That's one of the bands I didn't write. I wrote the B-52s. I wrote the Talking Heads. I was trying to think of other bands that have that kind of sarcastic sense of humor. Cake is dead on.
Well, he's got like, it's like the cadence of 3 or 4 different Cake songs for the entire intro. It's like beat for beat. The instruments are almost the same too. And then they bring in all the synths, and it's great. The last note here is like, I don't even know. It's just a me understanding what this is, I guess. Getting that it's like I don't think this whole album is an episode of like a cartoon or a TV show, but I think it's all the pieces.
I definitely think this is like the season recap right before you watch the finale, where they're like, "What happened on?"
Mm-hmm. I don't think this whole album is like a cohesive story in that genre. I think it's just like pieces of an episode here and there. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite. When I did the pre-listen, I was like, "This is going to be my favorite," and then it was close, but
nice. I was just looking up the years Cake was active. This is peak Cake era too. So
I thought it was close. I didn't look it up either, but I thought it had to be close.
I mean, you all know how bad it is to be wrong about something on the internet, but
God forbid you have an opinion and you're right in some regard.
Well, so yeah. So
they're not back.
They're never coming. Actually, we were told quite literally they would never be here, so
yeah, it's fine. So anyway, the good Cake albums are 96, 98, and 01, so this falls kind of in there. There might be more than 3 good Cake albums, don't quote me to that, but
I'm pretty sure there's only 3. There's only 3 that I know of.
The other thing I thought of while listening to this album was, if John from the Upstart Crows has not heard of the Aquabats, he is going to love them.
my exact thought was, this is Will Wood if I liked it. So
There is one later that I have, like, this is a Will Wood song.
yeah, we've done a lot of stuff like adjacent to this in one way or another, whether it's kind of that pop punk side or we did ska sort of. We did big band revival. You know, we kind
Oh,
of.
you weren't here for this.
say you
Ska.
weren't
Ska
here
was
for-
season 1.
We
where
did Cherry
the-
Poppin' Daddy's
the
one.
compilation, but
I was here for Cherry Poppin' Daddies.
no,
First
not
one?
the first one.
Zoot Suit?
The like Zoot Suit compilation.
I thought I was maybe not.
No,
No,
I
that
think
was-
you were just here for the interview.
That was a
Okay.
Discord
That
episode.
spawned off of that. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a long time ago.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Let's go to track 5, Lovers of Loving Love. Gave it an 8.5.
6.5.
I gave it an 8.
I want to talk because the thing. No. This song, the reason it got a low score is it weirded me out because it sounds like a 12-year-old dude hitting on like an 18-year-old girl, and it's just the vibe of the singer and stuff, and it's like, it's not that it like bugs me, or like causes any sort of issues. The vibe of it was just weird to me. And I'm sure if I re-listened to it and just said, all right, forget the lyrics, they're just being goofy, whatever, you could say things like that. Then you would get canceled for writing a song like this now.
I definitely just took it as a song that could never come out today.
yeah. And there was a couple parts that it was clever. Like the first time he says "lovers of loving love" is really clever because he goes, "We're lovers of loving love." He puts a nice pause in there, and then I was like, okay, that's clever. But I don't know, parts of it were.
Grody.
They were just. It wasn't like there was no Bill Cosby vibes. I'll put it that way. But it just, if you're thinking about this as you're
an adult writing from a 12-year-old's perspective about asking out another 12-year-old.
Yeah, it weirded me out
weird.
a little. That's all. And I couldn't get past that. And I don't think that's not their fault. That's not anybody's fault. I just, I don't think it held up very well 25 years later.
No, that is true. Other than that, it is just I'm Not Okay, I Promise by My Chemical Romance. The original version, I suppose. It is hilarious how much of an emo song this is pre-emo. I was talking to Connor, it's like they really would have had like Weezer and Green Day, if you want to call them emo in any way, which is like they ebb and flow in and out. But
this is what do you call it? Is the Cure emo?
I actually don't know. The only thing I know about The Cure is from you, which is if you like Van Halen, you hate The Cure, and I think that's true.
The Cure is technically goth rock, so I guess you're okay.
I thought emo was pretty much started, like the true acceptance of the start of emo was the mid-2000s or early 2000s. But in my mind, this is the groundwork of it.
It was funny because I heard this a couple times through the pre-listens, and I never looked at when this album came out, and I thought it was just a parody of all of the emo songs. I was like, this is like making fun of the thing I said to Logan was, this is making fun of a Flickr Fade show. And then he was like, this came out before all of those songs.
So
Like, oh.
so it's before like mainstream emo, but
Yeah.
it's not before like emo all the way out. I'll agree with that.
Oh, I'm just saying, like the mainstream.
Yeah, it's definitely before like MCR and Fall Out Boy and Panic and all those bands for sure. I don't know. This is another one of those people yell at us about genres, so I try to at least be vaguely correct.
All right. Go ahead and hop into track 6, Chemical Bomb. I gave this song a 10.
Yeah, this is the easiest 10 I think I've given out.
Give this one a 9.
All right, who put a song about like nuclear bombs and chemical warfare in the middle of this?
Dude, I literally fell out of my chair. Because I won't say I've, had this exact thought, but similar things of just like going and doing day-to-day things and then being like, it's not going to matter. We're all going to die when the bomb hits.
We have proof of that, actually.
Well, fine. But, I love that it had that kind of Latin samba vibe too. This is going to get snuck into a bunch of playlists and make people very angry when it comes on. I'm so excited.
It's funny, this is the one that I wrote sounds like a Will Wood song.
Huh, maybe I do like Will Wood.
Yeah, I have a commercial break type beat, and I think every time that's happened on this show, it's been a great song.
Yeah, it really has.
This one did a little bit feel like an interlude, which is the only thing stopping it from being a 10. But I think it's because it was like a commercial break sounding.
They didn't mean. I don't think they meant the album to be an episode of the show. I think it's just random stuff sprinkled, like it's a compilation kind of vibe.
The other thing that's hard to talk about this album is because it kind of is an album, but is kind of a compilation at the same time. Just like looking up on it, they never really came out and were like, yeah. But there are songs that flow into each other like it was written to on purpose. So I think they really had a good chunk of like, they were like, we have 3 songs here, 3 songs here, like 4 or whatever their blocking out of it was. But this feels like it was just a couple of projects put together instead of a couple EPs because it was the 90s.
It would make sense if it was like partials, like every 3 or 4 songs was an episode of the show or something, if that's how it was designed to be, because it does kind of fit together like that. The first few songs are kind of the fight, and then, we get into the other adventures here, and they start becoming smaller and smaller chunks, I think.
I wonder if this might be reaching way too far, but how they used to have an episode of the show back to back, they used to run them that way. So it'd be episode 1 with A plot, B plot, and then commercial break, and then episode 2 with the same thing.
I don't know. My favorite show of this type was always Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and whatever it was before they split it into the other thing. And I always think about that. I always think about how they could either have an episode that's like 3 small episodes crammed together, or they can have one long one. And don't quote me on this. I haven't seen that show in like 10 years. But, it was always cool that they could do like small segments and break stuff up and move fast, or they could do a longer thing. And so like the beginning of this to me was like, oh yeah, that's a full-length episode. And then as we go, we're just getting like little tidbits of stories. And I thought that was cool.
I bet we're thinking way too hard about
100%.
this. I just looked at the runtime. It's 46 minutes. Standard issue is an hour for a show. I guarantee you that the other filled time, because they bring kids up on stage, they interact with them, is for that time. And when they wrote this, it was like chunk 1 of the show was them fighting this, or this telling this story, and then they have the kid interlude or whatever, and they do their thing with the show, and then they're like, oh, the Aquabats are off on another mission, and then that's those next 3 songs or whatever.
So it would have been a 30-minute episode with 10 minutes of commercials, so it's a 20-minute episode. So the first 4 songs...
They didn't have a TV show.
Well, but if they had planned it that way, if you're thinking about it that way...
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying they had the live shows. They've always thought about and focused on the live shows, with the TV show being the eventual pitch. So I bet that's what the albums were set up for, because this is also prime time for a tour would have been to go see the album performed live or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I tried to think of it in a bunch of different ways, because the beginning is definitely, it reminded me even of MF Doom, the kind of the kids' cartoons vibe and stuff, and then we kind of get into it. At this point in the album, like every song has a different story. They're more like complete ballads and complete things on their own, and that really happens at like Lotto Fever, and it just starts becoming these little groupings of stories, and then it doesn't really come back. It's kind of cool. I don't know. I liked the way it worked as an album, even though there's not a complete story here. We're totally ruining our pacing discussion for later, by the way.
Nah, it's fine.
I'm also thinking way too hard about it.
That's what we do here on Album Book Club. We overthink and get facts wrong.
And then we get corrected.
Do we really get that many facts wrong?
All right. For track 7, The Man with the Gluey Hands, I gave it a 7 out of 10.
I gave it a 7.5.
I also gave it a 7.5.
I think this one truly was just a matter of it came after a song that was so good. Because I didn't think this was a bad song in any way. But they did mention Ronald Reagan, which I was like, that dates the crap out of this. Reagan has not been popular for at least 20 years.
I mean, Reagan wasn't popular when this came out.
That's true.
They talk there's another one later on. There's a line about trying to call the president, but the phone number isn't listed. That's in track 9. There's a bunch of really funny references. Kind of like that. I don't know. Sorry, I'll talk about the song now. I thought the premise was hilarious, but incredibly disgusting. Like, no one knows why his hands are so gluey, but he just rubs them on people. Like, those are some of the lyrics. I did enjoy the tempo and energy. I didn't like the ho-ha screams, but I enjoyed the comedy and the lyrics. This is one of those great songs about nothing. There's another band that I could have written down as Presidents of the USA. That's another band that writes songs about literally nothing that are just hilarious and fun. But I guess that's a 2-piece versus an 8 or 9-piece, so that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think I had almost the least amount of notes written for this one. We were back to like the punk sound, and I was 100% here for it. Love the energy it brought, but yeah, it is a song about nothing. So
Yeah, it was kind of great though, to just be able to turn off at any point in this album and check back in and know that you're not missing anything. It's all pretty straightforward. They didn't throw you any curves where they're like, oh, we got a cool refrain here. No, it's all straightforward. Drive until it's done.
I just want you to know how impressed I was that they like made a song about something that I could have never imagined on my own, but was both interesting enough for me to think about why, but also not so disgusting I wasn't immediately grossed out.
That is a skill.
That's pretty impressive. I just FYI.
All right. You guys ready to move on? Track 8, we have Monster Wedding. Give this a 7 out of 10.
I give this one an 8.
gave it a 7 out of 10.
I was not digging the accordion. Other than that, the rest of the song was great. There was just... Presence wasn't even right. It was exactly where it needed to be. I just did not like it.
You don't like the French, huh?
I like accordion. It felt like it should have been something else, you know. Maybe organ. I think because it was a wedding. I was picturing like a pipe organ or something like that.
We'd always talked about starting a Zydeco band, doing like banjo, accordion, and sousaphone. Get somebody with a washboard. So many places you could get kicked out of. Sorry. Anyway, I really liked that the music fit the theme, and the lyrics fit the theme. Everything here worked to make a cohesive picture. You know, this really reminded me of like the segments of the Count singing on Sesame Street and stuff like that. Like just the amount of imagery, even just the background track brought, and kind of took you into this place. And that's something that is really hard to pull off, especially when the last track is not like that at all. It's easy to do an album of tracks like that, but to get me to go to that place immediately in one track, super impressed. This one also was more fleshed out than a lot of the other songs before it. I think it was a little longer.
I think this one was 4 minutes because the last track was 2. Most of them are like 3 until there's a more fleshed out song, which there are a couple in this back half.
And it told a full story, even if the story was basically nonsense.
Yeah, Dracula was really hitting that. The tempo change I loved. Like the switch back into ska from the intro was cool. Really tied it all together with these screams of anguish at the end.
All right, that made me mad at first, and then it was fine because I thought he was just gonna moan out. It was like a moan or a whimper. I was like, if that is the last thing I hear on this track, it is going down in points. And then they screamed. I was like, all right, you're fine.
I also wrote this. This song reminded me of Scooby-Doo and Courage the Cowardly Dog, which are always good things.
What about the crossover of Scooby-Doo and Courage the Cowardly Dog?
Yeah, that's not a great episode, but
it's actually kind of terrible.
It's a good thing that happened. Yeah. You just realize that Courage is completely useless, but yeah.
Yeah, but he gets to yell at Muriel and Eustace.
That's true. Muriel's sweet. I hate Eustace. Muriel.
All right. Ready to talk about the Ballad of Mr. Bonkers? Give this one an 8.
I give this one an 8.5.
I gave this one a 6.
It's not Mr. Bonkers.
I guess not. There was the transition from the scream into the start of this was insane. The only reason that it's lower is because I did not like the beginning part. I think it's about a minute of the waltz in the beginning. I was not a fan. I loved it after it got to like the rock section, but I was not feeling the waltz.
So I'm going to disagree with you completely because I wrote keyboard part is hilarious in itself and keeps comedy and lightheartedness of track. That was my favorite part until we got to the second and third parts.
Yeah, I liked the waltz, and then it turned into a build, which is like, okay, That's wildly different, but it's fun, and it just kept the drive up of the album. But also, this is exactly where a ballad track should and would go on any standard album, and they tried to the best of their ability, and you know, I like their style.
Yeah, I did not understand the story at all, though. If we were trying to understand what Mr. Bonkers was about, other than he kept trying to call the president.
Yeah, I got lost like a quarter of the way through the verse.
I think it's in his name. You're probably not supposed to understand what he's doing.
He's kind of bonkers.
I don't know. I can usually follow Weird Al in his stories, so I'm usually pretty good.
This is a step above weird. This is bonkers.
I guess that's true.
This is on a whole different level. You're not understanding.
You mess with Bonkers Marvin. This step past Weird Al.
No, this is going to be something I'll have to look up later. All right.
All right, we ready to talk about track 10?
Oh, yeah.
It's Lupus. Gave it an 8.
I also gave it an 8.
6.5, and I will get this out of the way.
So we know that Connor does not have a dog. That's what we learned.
That's true.
So, Canis lupus is the scientific name of a gray wolf. I had to look it up. I was like, this is definitely something. It's a good, fun, goofy song. There's a weird line where it says, "Don't sniff me there," and I was like, that's just hilarious. But it felt very weird.
So the only thing I didn't like in this song, there is one point where one of the other guys in the Aquabats talks about how you have to treat your dog right or it'll run away and never come back. And I know that if I was like a kid and had just gotten a dog and was super excited about this song, that would make me really sad. Like, I would cry. Maybe. I don't know. I didn't cry a lot. But I really liked the orchestra hits. It's a song about dogs. That's always awesome. And then they closed it out by playing the bark sound on the keyboard. He was literally sitting there playing like dog bark chords and stuff on the keyboard, which I just thought was one of the funniest things. And that's one of those voices that I never thought you could use effectively in a band situation, and here it happened.
Yeah, you pretty much got everything. It is so goofy and fun and wacky. And yeah, it is just a song about dogs and like loving dogs and having good pets and being nice. You're absolutely right. That would scare me as like a child. I'd be so terrified.
But it's also educational because it's about domesticating the wolf into dogs. I mean, it like nailed all the things.
It's definitely something that I would want my kids to listen to. Maybe not Chemical Warfare or Chemical Bomb, but this one's fun. All right, let's go on to track 11, Tiny Pants. Give it a 7.
Well, this one got the 4.
I went a step lower. I gave it a 3.
Look, I can't even defend it. I genuinely stopped caring about the vocals when I realized I wasn't going to care about them. And I fell in love with the instrumentation of this one. The trumpets were fun. There was some sort of xylo or vibraphone, harder mallets than just a marimba. And, all the guitars were just doing what they were supposed to. The drummer was having a good time. The vocals were not great, but also they were just goofy and wacky enough for me to be like, yeah, this is for a kid, not for me. I get it.
I can't get over that they got the like mascot guy from Bullet Train to feature on this song. My first note is, Logan, defend yourself, because you were hyping this album up while I was listening to this track.
Instrumentation.
The other note is about Carson, and he didn't make it.
Yeah, he died again this week.
He didn't pull through. No, I loved the Hawaiian vibes or island vibes. I won't necessarily pigeonhole Hawaii, but any singer that does an Elvis impression, you're already losing some points, especially if your name is Morrissey. His name's not Morrissey, but they lost some points for that. And I would have been okay with just the Elvis impression, but then there's like chipmunk voices, and then later the chipmunk voices start screaming. And I can't. I'm sorry, I can't.
It genuinely sounded like they took one of those toys that replicates your voice and says it higher, and they just put that in the booth.
Yeah.
And if that's what they did, I'm so fine with that, because that's hilarious.
Do we want a technical break? The way they recorded all the Chipmunks albums is they just recorded them at half speed.
Yeah, and then sped it up.
And then just sped it up. That's all they did. If you play them at half speed, if you like if you have a record player, if you can find one on 78, you can put it on 45 and get close enough to what the real thing sounded like, or you can use a DAW or something fancy and do it the right way. But you can hear the actual voices of the people and how slow they had to sing, and it's really funny to hear normal people sing the songs at half speed. But that's all they did, and I'm sure that's the same thing. It's an easy studio trick. The Beatles did it a bunch, very famously. Kind of intentionally, kind of unintentionally. Rocky Raccoon's one of the... I think it's Rocky Raccoon. There's a famous honky-tonk piano part on that album that the piano was kind of out of tune, and none of them could play a solo that they liked at the right tempo. So they just played one slow and then doubled it, and it ended up having this really like crass honky-tonk sound in the track. But that's all it is. It's just sped up twice, more than likely.
Master of Puppets was recorded in E flat and sped up on the track to standard.
You say it's sped up, but do you doubt that they might all just have one of those toys that speed up your voice and they sing it on set or like on stage with the toy?
You know, you can do it live. There's ways to do it, but
I'm thinking like in terms of the show now. If they all had one of those things,
that would be absolutely.
I'll give
hilarious.
like 4 points back if that's how they do it.
Yeah, you know,
like a dancing cactus.
Yeah.
There's definitely voice changer toys that can go up. You know, there's ways to do it, but I'm sure this was recorded digitally. But this would have been early digital. You know, they wouldn't have a.
Oh yeah, they for sure just went in the booth, sang whatever it was, and were like, yeah, speed it up.
I mean, but like live, they weren't. I don't think this would have been auto-tune, but you could use, you know, there's been vocoders since. I mean, you could use a vocoder to do it. You know, there's a lot of ways to do it, but specifically the chipmunk voices, which would have sounded like the most to me, is just the doubled speed.
I wouldn't be surprised if they just skip this one live too. A lot of the mallet stuff, because this one had a lot of mallets. I didn't see that they had a live mallet player.
It's keyboard. It's all keyboard sounds.
Well, they didn't have a keyboard player until like the mid 2000s.
It's got to be one of the guitar players switching
I would
off.
say someone I think was doing multiple stuff in the band. So, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they just skipped this one due to how much they had. Is that, or I bet they were hiring people for their live shows at the time, but full time they had a smaller band and then grew.
Well, there's more keyboards on the tracks that don't have horns, so I assume that one of the horn players or all the horn players or something, they were also doubling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that tends to happen a lot. I don't know. I should have looked into that, because usually with a band of, I think it was 8 members in the beginning, there's got to be somebody.
It was like, I think it was like 4 that started it, right? So the concept of the band started pretty small and then got bigger, I think, within like the first couple of months. I'm pretty sure it just started out as a straight up punk band and then went through the roof.
So there's 7 of them on the cover of the album. No, 8, one in the car. All 8 of them are on the cover of the album.
That's this album, which is 99, yeah?
Yeah.
They started in 94.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, I think by time they got here, they may have had them all full time. But when they started, they...
Yeah, so they have the main vocalist, the bass player also does vocals, trumpet player also sings. The robot plays woodwinds, keyboards and vocals, guitar, synthesizers, and trumpet. So 2 of the horn players double. There's another guitar player, and then there's a drum and programmer. So the drummer also plays some of the program parts. So they're all over the place.
It's way too much to remember.
It's fine. I just pulled up Wikipedia.
No, I mean like for those guys playing the show. Imagine how many parts you have to remember. Or you think they have sheet music?
No, they probably just remember it. I forget you've never done a theater gig. That's just normal. For those types of gigs, or a lot of gigs, you end up doubling. If you play any sort of horn and like get gigs, you're doubling on something.
I say horns, yeah. Drums doing other stuff, that's unusual to me.
Most live gigs now, the drummer's the one triggering everything. Running the click, triggering all the tracks, doing all that stuff. So that's probably what it means programming. They're probably just running sample tracks and sampled sounds way before. I mean, technology was there. They were probably just running computers and triggering them with something, but that could also just mean that could also just mean he did the drum machine parts on the album, because there's a couple times the drum machine's playing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Going to track 12, The Thing on the Bass Amp. I gave this one an 8.
I give it an 8.5.
Gave it an 8.
Yeah, is another goofy, good, fun track. The harmonies on this one was the big thing to note here. They were really, really, really well done. And then there's a funny skit in there that just kind of came and went. It didn't overstay. It was just felt right.
This one was like, it was kind of like inspirational. It was like the thing that keeps you going. I don't know. It was kind of weird. But I did dig it. And I really liked the tempo change-ups in the second section. This one really kept the energy kind of moving and kept my attention span going, which just further proves that somehow I've destroyed all my brain cells and I should just be listening to things for children. But, yeah. That's all I got.
I think the only thing that hasn't been said is I like the bass. Believe it or not, on the bass song.
Yeah, the bass song had good bass.
What's the bass amp song?
That's true, yeah. All right. Go to track 13, Amino Man. I give this a 10.
I give this one a 7.
Give this one a 9.
Yeah, this has a lot more of the punk drive than the other songs. I think this was very, very punk. There was fun synths in there too, but it was a lot more guitar driven. Everything was just fun, and I do like the fact that the name is a take on like more words than it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a mean old man. Def Leppard did it with Armageddon. That was Are We Getting It? So yeah, I just like that kind of little nod. It's pretty cool.
It just reminded me of The Offspring. That's all I wrote.
Yeah.
Just if their sense of humor was like PG instead of PG-13.
Instrument-wise, it reminded me of a lot of what I listen to now, actually. But they also had beeps and boops in the beginning. So it was like a combination of two different genres that I already listened to. That was done really well.
All right. Go to track 14, Hello Goodnight. I give this one a 10.
Yeah, I gave this one an 8.
Uh-oh. I give this one a 6.5.
Yeah, it started off very nice, very chill, and then everything kind of kicked in back to not exactly where we've been the entire album, but somewhere appropriate for an ending. And everything just kind of was what it needed to be for me to come off of this album and go on. I did start listening to more bands like this after I pulled up Goldfinger, so I was ready.
Yeah, I just wrote, if you're... We tend to really like the kind of like the overture style where they pull samples from everything at the end and kind of redisplay everything. But if you're not going to do that, I like to have something that's like, okay, goodbye or good night. I think that's really cool, especially when it's not just an outro. It's actually a good song too. So yeah, it felt like an ending and it was actually a good song, unlike a lot of outros.
Yeah, the score is lower, but this is still a good song, and I think it is a very good outro, especially for like this being a live show. Did a great job. I just didn't like it as much as its own song. I think in the context of the album, it's perfect.
Yeah,
I get it. I kind of had this thing across the album where it kind of took a second to set in, and then I got kind of tired of it, and then I understood the humor, and I enjoyed the rest of it. So,
yeah, I don't think I've ever disliked this kind of humor with an album. It's weird. If you have just the right sense of humor and are really good musician, like musically, I can always get behind it. It's just a lot of people take themselves too seriously with this kind of humor, which is what always kept me away from ICP or something like that, a band that is quite hilarious, but they take themselves far too seriously for me to ever get behind it.
well, unlike other bands we reviewed recently, their fans know when to quit. But it I don't know. ICP, they have their kind of thing, and their shows get pretty rowdy. But
They're self-contained though.
Yeah, they are.
They're their own little bubble.
They kind of do their own thing and don't really bother anybody. There's no like.
It's great, actually. I love it.
ICP can have crazy concerts and crazy stuff can happen, but they don't tear up anything that isn't part of their thing. Don't be within 10 city blocks, but other than that, you're good. They're not going to start a riot and burn the city down. It's better than a lot of bands. But anyway, sorry. I enjoyed the fact that it was an album kind of for kids, but again, the humor was smart enough that I laughed at a few of the songs. And I mean, yeah, maybe kids shouldn't be worried about chemical bombs, but especially since this is before Shrek, this kind of humor was like way, way different. I mean, Shrek was kind of the point where like kids movies started being like that, at least that I remember.
I don't know, man. There's always been a lot of adult humor in kids stuff. Go look at like the Animaniacs. There's a bunch of clips you can pull from that as a TV show, and then
fair,
like the Brave Little Toaster. There's the like mass suicide scene or whatever in the beginning.
Yeah, but those aren't like, I don't know. So like Animaniacs is just chaos all the time, and then Brave Little Toaster has that really weird dark segment, and there's weird like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang where they have the whole like Nazi segment, and you forget about it until you go rewatch it.
See, that one I think is the time it's made. It's the same
Right.
with like, all the weird stuff in Mary Poppins or stuff like that era. It's just a product of the time. But I mean, I guess like Cow Chicken and that would have been made for teens.
Yeah, but I think this aim's lower than like Ren and Stimpy or like Cow and Chicken or stuff like that, because things like that would have been on Adult Swim or later on in Fox. It's not the same humor as The Simpsons. Like this is more of, I think the closest thing to it is really like Shrek. It's that like kids thing that also is just funny for everyone. And maybe I was just the right age when Shrek came out. We saw it like 3 times in theaters when it was out. But it's one of those things that I really remember everyone thinking that was funny, and it just bums me out that these guys never got their due. They never got the chance they deserved, because this could have been that. I really do feel like it. And I don't know. I didn't watch any live clips or anything to see what the live shows were like, but they have to be killer based on what this is.
I've watched a few of their concerts just to spare some or go through some time and listen to them. They actually sound really good live, for one. But two, everyone's having a blast. All the kids are having a blast. All the parents are having a blast. They're just goofy. They're having a good time. They'll do like some stuff where they'll bring the kids on stage and like toss them into the crowd and stuff like that or whatever, and they'll play their songs. Yeah. All right. I guess we'll just go ahead and hop into pacing. What little left we have to discuss of it.
For real.
I gave pacing an 8. There are like 2 sides of a coin here. I think I am one side and you are the other.
No, I actually didn't write a pacing score down because my Apple Music subscription expired and I got ads between every song, so I didn't feel like it was fair. But after talking about it a little bit, I think it's like a 7, a solid 7. The tracks don't really flow that well together, but I don't know that they're supposed to.
Yeah, I also gave it an 8, and we've been talking about it pretty much the whole time. That is the one downfall with pacing on this show.
I think that's also the downfall of something this good. Like, usually we can rip something to shreds because someone's bad somewhere, or the production sucks, or maybe they are learning and they need help and we can help that. These are professional guys. They're all good. They're all established. This, who hasn't said something about this album in 26 years that cares about it? So it's like, what are we going to talk about the whole time to fill our time requirement per contract? And
We're getting
just
pretty good. We're
keep
doing pretty good today.
keep going. Yeah, but we've filled it with pacing. And that's just kind of how this album is. It just goes and goes. There's nothing really to dog on about it. I don't think it's perfect pacing because I don't quite understand how to pace it, which is my big point of contention. I don't know if this is a compilation of some of the TV show bits or what would have been TV show bits, or if this is supposed to be how a live show is structured. That's just where it loses the pacing scores. I can't figure out what it's paced for.
Yeah, for me, it's like, okay, we were talking about this. The first 3 tracks are like an episode. The show starts and then they build the thing to defeat the guy, and then I guess antimatter's the thing they use to defeat the guy. And then it just kind of goes into like some kind of random stuff, and then it's into like stories, and it continues with stories for the rest of the album. And not that I didn't like any of that. It's just, it doesn't. Again, we're overthinking it, but it just
That's very true.
I don't think it is like a cohesive piece fully. Even though I love the product and I enjoyed listening to this top to bottom, which is more than I can say for a lot of albums we've done. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll hop on over to album art. I don't even know what to rate this album art. It's either like the greatest album art ever for what it's for, or it's just like a 6.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because I don't think that's a car that I know what it is, which is really unusual, and I don't know what those guitars are.
Those are they have them like custom made for the band for the show.
And I bet the car is the same way.
I believe it is, yeah.
You know, and the more I started looking, the more I started noticing some of the lore details. Like they have different emblems on their shirts, even though they all match. They all have different shirts that kind of show whatever character they are, and they all like get into costume in their own way, and they're all kind of goofy and quirky, but they don't follow the same goofy and quirky. I love the guy that has whatever, hopefully non-permanent ink blocking out his front teeth.
I believe that is Expo Mark.
Yeah, whatever it is, you know, I think it's really funny how much they're in character and how much they clearly enjoy being in character doing these shows, which I'm sure has to be incredibly taxing to A, be around children all the time, but B, be in character all the time. I don't know. Some people love it, but
I bet these are definitely guys that love what they're doing. To have gone this long and still keep doing it. I mean, they're on tour, I think, actively. So they gotta just love what they're doing.
yeah, it comes through the music. I'm with you. I wrote 8. I said it nails it for what it is. You know, I don't. It's kind of one color, which I don't love. But if you think about the closest thing to it, and then the band I haven't brought up on purpose is the closest thing to this band that I can think of is the Ventures. They just remind me of that kind of 60s surf rock brought into the 90s sense of humor, but with the stylings of like Adam West Batman. And this nailed all of it. You know, the car kind of looks like the Batmobile from that era. They've got the goofy looking guitars like the Ventures. I don't know. It nails what it is for what it is. And I loved the Japanese writing on it that kind of said what it was about.
The funniest thing is their marketing has always reminded me most of the band Aqua. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but they have used very similar fonts to the point when I first saw the Aquabats poster. It was the exact same font as the Aqua poster that has song Superheroes on. I can't think of the album. No one knows it because hardly anyone knows who the band Aqua is anymore.
That's true.
It's the Barbie Girl band.
Yeah, but it's like that same exact text that they use for their font and logo is what the Aquabats were using. I was like, oh, I wonder if they're connected in some way, or if someone just at the same time was like, yep, this is it. Because it's very strikingly similar, how like the Aqua logo and then the Aquabats logo, the font.
I figured out how to describe it's the right amount of like kitschy, almost like it almost reminds me of like early anime and stuff like that too. You know, we talk about how much we love Speed Racer all the time. Maybe not on this show, but you know,
off the show.
Off the show, we talk about how much we love to watch early episodes of Speed Racer, which is one of the funniest things to sit and rewatch because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense 90% of the time. But I kind of love the way that kind of flows into this, that kind of semi-sarcastic cartoon thing. I don't know.
It really is just a sense of going into something with the idea of not trying to make anything profound, but simply just trying to let you get away until it's over. And I think they encapsulated it perfectly.
So do you guys have numbers?
For album overall or album art?
Album art.
I said 6, but it's
Okay.
like realistically for the project itself, it's a 10 for what they were going for. But if we're just talking about like of all pieces of album art, it ain't great.
I went the avenue of what it is, what it's for, and I gave it a 10.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
All right, we'll go to album overall. I gave this album a 9.
I'm gonna give it an 8. I'm gonna go up.
I also gave it an 8.
I think for me personally, this is the second best album we've had on the show. It just brought me to a place like the best album we've had on the show, Somewhere City. of just fun reminiscence, enjoying. And this isn't something I grew up with as a child. It's just it invoked all those feelings without trying. It's meant for kids, I suppose. So it's not exactly trying to make me feel like a kid, but it did it, and I had a lot of fun. I am going to go hunt this down on vinyl if it exists, and I'm going to continually listen to the Aquabats. I mean, I have not really particularly stopped listening to the Aquabats, but
Yeah, I don't know. The biggest takeaway from this for me was like, man, I wish I had listened to this earlier. Or, I don't know, kind of growing up, I kind of grew up out in the sticks a little bit. And I always say we were 3 or 4 years behind. And, I was cool because I knew who the Strokes were and nobody else did, that kind of thing. It was, none of my music taste was ever all that interesting. It's just that I was 2 years behind, whereas everyone else was 5 years behind. So it makes sense that I never got the Aquabats in my childhood. But it was kind of like, man, I really missed out because I think Kid Me would have really enjoyed this.
mm-hmm.
Just kind of the whole thing and the high energy, and especially now knowing what I'm into and knowing, all the ska I like, and which one did you say you were listening to, Logan? What were you listening to? Goldfinger. Yeah. I've kind of gone back and listened to that. Is that second or third wave ska? Whichever wave it is of ska, I really like that stuff. And, it's funny, we talk about how much I love No Doubt all the time. And, or like Madness is another one that kind of has this similar sense of humor, but you have to listen a little deeper.
They also reminded me of like the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. They have that same similar, like, no nonsense, just having fun.
Yeah, ska always has a sense of humor. That's part of the thing is like you can't, if you take ska seriously, it's just big band again.
Just jazz.
So it's like they kind of have to have the sense of humor and it's high energy. And I forget the exact quote, but someone once told me that ska is what happens when a 12-year-old boy eats a slice of pizza. It's what happens in his brain. and like that's always stuck with me. And I don't think that's the exact quote, but it's like this raw energy and just kind of like thrown out. And I think this album encapsulates that a lot. And it did a good job of taking me back to a childhood that I never lived, which is really strange. The Wonder Years kind of did that too, but this one was another one that kind of did that.
Yeah, no, I had a great time with this album. We'll be listening again. We kind of just spent the last 10 minutes saying everything, so...
Yeah, it's kind of... We just beat a dead horse around here every week, huh?
Say, going last in the order is never good on an album like this.
No. Keep suggesting albums, though. We won't get to them anytime soon, but keep suggesting them.
That's true.
We got some good ones coming up, I think.
That we do.
Couple good weeks, yeah.
Speaking of, next week we'll be listening to By the Way by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Suggested somewhere. I don't remember.
Yeah, this, I believe, is a farm.
It was like a whole
comment.
wave of suggestions from every platform. I don't know where, off the top of my head. Probably TikTok.
Yeah, we do read every comment, though.
We do.
Know that.
Yeah,
they didn't make it this far.
Yeah, they definitely didn't watch
The
this
people
one.
that we're talking about did not make it this far.
It's fine. I already got them.
Yeah, we got them like 3
You
or 4
got 'em a
times.
bunch of times.
It's fine.
Alrighty, yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, and I suppose we'll see you next week.
If any of them did make it this far, we're not done.
Oh.
No, I mean that's foreshadowing way later down the series.
Ooh, savage.
Get ready for Christmas.
Oh, those. Yeah, for those of you who made it, get ready. You're done.
Savage.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.